football and we have takes. Welcome to Football Takes. Football! Yeah! Football!
We're gonna test out a new format per the group text thread request here. There are so many topics bubbling over in the National Football League. Chaos around the National Football League. I will throw out topics and you guys give takes, and I will too. And Judd, we're going to task you with coming up with a name for this segment at some point.
Football.
Okay.
The hurry up, the blitz,
Football.
I got to give this some thought.
the 2 minute drill.
Yeah, it can't be that. Sirius has that. Too common.
Don't they have show names called those, don't they? The blitz where the rich get
They
in.
definitely do have the. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
It's the 4-minute offense with. Does Adam Shine still host on NFL? Seriously? No, he's back in the
No, I
day.
think he's on Mad Dog.
Mad Dog Radio. That's right.
Mad Dog Radio. Adam Shine.
So there's chaos happening all over the place. We got Thor Nystrom in the house here, our draft aficionado, Judd Zolgad, Phil Mackey, producer Declan, and Dickie's Barbecue in the house as well, powering these football takes for the upper Midwest audience in particular. Dickie's Barbecue Pit in Eagan, Minnesota, celebrating 85 years of slow-smoked Texas barbecue. You can dine in, as I did just a couple weeks ago there. You can do takeout. You can do delivery, and they'll deliver for and cater for any event, any size, anywhere, whether it's an office lunch, which we actually did here at Score North a few weeks ago, graduation season coming up here, family events, all meats smoked in-house daily. Fantastic for all the aforementioned things. So if you've got a group coming up or an event coming up, 866-BARBECUE, or go to dickies.com, Dickie's Barbecue Pit in Eagan.
Football.
All right, boys. Well, we've talked about this on our aforementioned Vikings podcast, Thor Talks Purple and Purple Daily. But as we broaden the conversation out, Kyler Murray is set to be released by the Arizona Cardinals. I'll throw a couple other quarterback logs on the fire. Daniel Jones gets the transition tag, so he can sign with another team, but the transition tag from the Colts is a 1-year, like $37 million benchmark. He's guaranteed at least a 1-year, $37 million contract. We know that Kirk Cousins is going to get released next week, and we're waiting on some other movement there too. But Kyler released, Daniel Jones transition tag, quarterback movement is starting. Thor, give us a take.
Yeah, well, I would expect Daniel Jones back with the Colts. I don't know anyone that's going to sign him to some crazy contract coming off the Achilles that would force the issue there, and then the Colts would allow that team to have him, whatever. So that one to me seems like a formality. The Kyler one obviously is pretty fascinating in this offseason where you have several teams that need quarterbacks, and now you have multiple options that are starting caliber options that are you're not going to have to. It's going to be a minimum salary for 1 year. And so Kyler, him and his camp, you assume that they're going to be the first to lead this dance where and I think the report was that he has two, he's interested in two teams. So curious what his first option would be. And then the obvious question is he the Vikings' first choice? Because, with all the reports and common sense with it, you would think that the Vikings, their first choice, they probably get it, as far as that goes. So that's going to be pretty fascinating to watch. And once that domino goes, you're going to see a bunch of the other quarterback dominoes go right after it. But Kyler's got to make his decision first.
Beyond the Vikings, can we talk about potential fits too? Because there's always teams. There are teams that need QBs. I told you guys on PD that there's some steam out of Pittsburgh that Mike McCarthy's always been a Kyler fan and that they could inquire about him. So, where do we think, and Kyler can have a list of two, God bless him, but I don't know that he can call his shot for sure. So, how many fits do we think of teams with vacant quarterback positions, some of whom are desperate, Kyler could be a potential fit for?
I'll give you the updated odds right now. You can react to these. So this is from, I'm on one of the prediction markets here. I'm on Kalshi for this, DraftKings, all sorts of.
You said Kalshi?
I did, yeah.
I just bought some stock in Kalshi. That's great. Great news.
I'm actually a part owner with Giannis, so I don't know. It's great. What team will Judd be headlining next? What podcast team? So they're all kind of similar, but the Vikings are number one on most of these On DraftKings, the Vikings are minus 110 to land Kyler and 55% on Kelce. The Jets on DraftKings are second at plus 175 and second on Kelce, 19%. With the Dolphins in both cases, third, plus 320 DraftKings, 9% Kelce. And then you have Steelers, 8%. The Rams, 7%. And that's up from 1% earlier in the week. That's interesting. We'll get to the Rams, too. They actually just went full Rams again right before we hit record on this podcast. But I don't know. Like, to me, Thor, the Jets seem like if you just want to start for sure, but then derail your career further, you'd go sign with the Jets. The Dolphins are kind of interesting with a new regime. I think Pittsburgh, if Mike McCarthy likes Kyler Murray, Pittsburgh is kind of fascinating. You know, they lead with defense, but they're trying to revamp their offense there, and you could step in and just be in a more functional situation than Arizona. I don't know. What do you think, Thor?
Yeah, you know, again, goes back. What is the Vikings' prerogative here? And you know, because again, like if you know, it's like what Rob Brzezinski, the interim GM at the Vikings, was talking about like you know a guy that we're interested in that's also interested in us, and then you know also has to be in our price range, and we know that Kyler's going to be for that. But yeah, with the other options there. The Jets, of course, yeah, you can go in. The offense is going to funnel through you, and you can do your scramble around thing in what is going to be a fairly low-pressure situation because everyone feels that they're going to be terrible. But, yeah, to your point, with Kyler, is that something that you want to subject yourself to? The Steelers one's interesting. You know, you would assume that if Aaron Rodgers wants to go back, that would, you know, that's what they're going to do. But what if Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to play again? The Steelers would need a starting quarterback then. And Miami too, you know, thinking about these quarterbacks, because that's an interesting offensive system. So, you know, and the most commonly associated with them has been Malik Willis to this point. But you see on Twitter yesterday a pretty valid argument of, would you rather pay Malik Willis $35 million for multiple years or Kyler Murray the minimum for one? Right, so that's where that equation changes a little bit, and you could see how Miami absolutely could be interested, especially because what do they have to shoulder? $90 million dead cap dollars from releasing and moving on from Tua, so that would certainly be helpful to their books.
Haven't we this feels like when like the internet, the .com bubble burst in the early 2000s, or when like the housing market crashed, and you could just you could go buy property for, you know, 25 cents on the dollar. The fact that, and I'm not saying these are franchise saviors, but we're talking like first round picks that are in their 20s that are available for $1.3 million because of their previous situation collapsing and the offset language. And even like Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold being available for $15 and $30 million, you know, somewhere between there. It kind of feels like the quarterback every year is like Brock Purdy, Tua, everyone gets 50, 55, Jordan Love, Dak Prescott 60, and boom, the housing market crashed, and now Kyler Murray's available for $1.3 million now.
The Dolphins one intrigues me a lot because of what Thor said about the financials of Tua. Also, you know, Phil, in that tweet that you put out last night, weighing the good and bad of Kyler,
it's a great tweet.
It was a great tweet. It was fantastic. It was very insightful. But you had among the bad the cold weather aspect, because clearly the Vikings have to play the Packers and Bears, and you don't know when.
Steelers would affect
the Dolphins would solve that problem. You got to play in Buffalo, perhaps.
But that's the problem. Like Tua had the same thing.
Yeah.
Where he had just like not played cold weather. It's a regular season thing to be solved from like September through November, and then home games beyond that. But the teams that you're going to wind up playing, and if that's the thing about Kyler, you brought up the cold weather thing. He's played 3 games below 40 degrees in his career to this point.
Cardinals.
So the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to play a bunch of those games probably in November, December, January, and then think about the road games that you would encounter in the AFC: the Buffaloes, the New Englands, the Pittsburghs, and other ones that I'm not even naming here. So, yeah, I don't know. Find a cold weather. Find a cold tub and hang out in it. And
the offensive system, though, at least would is a fit. The weather stuff, maybe. You know, with Tua, that was a thing. You know, you can't just be like, you know, that's absurd. But For me, it would be trying to find the best offensive situation, right? Because you just put yourself in Kyler's shoes. His stock has never been lower. A poverty organization, the Cardinals, are doing they're ruining their books in order to get rid of Kyler Murray. That's how much they wanted him out. And with Kyler now, this situation where you get to pick your suitor and basically have a 1-year audition, you have to put yourself into the best 1-year audition spot that you possibly can, right? I mean, that's all for Kyler Murray personally. That's all that matters, because then after that, you're going to get as much money as your play in the 2026 season dictates, right? So that's I think that's the number one. That's where the Jets. That's where, for me, to the way you were setting that up initially, Phil, of like, I don't know if I would want to do the Jets, even though, obviously you're going to be the face of you get to be the face of the Jets for a year. Aaron Rodgers and those guys love that, and Justin Fields, but yeah.
Yeah, I just football. Unless other teams just said no, and you're, because it's going to be the money's going to be the same either way. So I don't know how the Jets would be. Okay, as we continue on here with the soon to be named segment here, the blitz, the hurry up, the 2-minute drill, whatever. The Rams just went full Rams again. It's been a minute since they've gone full Rams.
This is a fascinating trade.
So Trent McDuffie, who at age 25, still on a rookie scale deal for, is it one more year? Or no, he might have signed an extension actually, but former first round pick, 25 years old, and he's been a high end starting cornerback for the Chiefs the last few years. He goes to the Rams, so they get their next Jalen Ramsey, I guess, because they did this for Jalen Ramsey a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And the Chiefs get a first-round pick, the 29th overall pick, a 5th, a 6th, and a 3rd-round pick in 2027. But this is fascinating, and we'll start with Thor here, because you've got two teams that presumably are fighting to win a Super Bowl in 2026. The Rams looking to break through again, and the Chiefs looking to get back in and continue their dynasty. And it's the Rams who go full Rams and give up all that draft capital, and the Chiefs give up one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. Super interesting trade here.
Very interesting trade that is in part helped facilitated by our old friend, Terrible Terry Fontenot of the Atlanta Falcons, because if the Rams did not have multiple first-round picks this year, I don't know that they could do this. And then the other thing that's pretty fascinating about this is when that trade happened, so we're rewinding the clock to last Thursday night of April, when Terry Fontenot trades up with the Rams to get back into the first round in a very ill-fated trade to trade for James Pierce. But then the Rams acquired their Atlanta's first-round pick this year, which, of course, is higher. The one that they're trading here is their own one, in addition to a 2027 round 3 pick primarily there. But you open up the flexibility to do it for that. I thought at the time, and this might be true, it's just the equation has changed a little bit. I thought at the time that the Rams might be interested in doing that, but their explicit reasoning for doing it might have been because this might be Matthew Stafford's last year. If we can get 2 first-round picks in the next class, that will give us maneuverability in that scenario to potentially go out and get his successor. Well, now we know that Stafford's going to be back for another year, right? Or we assume he's going to be – they're not looking to move on from Matthew Stafford in the same way where 1 year ago, you guys recall, Matthew Stafford was very close to walking out the door. There was multiple teams, right, that were in on – there was the weird meeting in the – Wyoming, or was it Tom Brady bumps into?
Yeah, it's like a high-end ski resort.
Yeah,
it's funny, like totally randomly. Sometime in the last month and a half, I met someone who used to work at that ski resort, and
really?
And they're like, I think they all have to sign NDAs because so many celebrities and high-level football players, and our guy Trevor Plouffe from the Score on a Twin show hangs out there.
Is just like when you go into Club Sway, Judd, where you have to sign the NDAs.
I can't talk about that.
but yeah, and so now with that Stafford's coming back for another year, this is so clear what the Rams are doing. It is, we're all in, right? I mean, like, you got the extra flexibility for this class of, like, if Stafford retires, right, and then a couple things happen, maybe then we have to rebuild or we have to reload, and we'll give ourselves a maneuverability for that. But because you're going to go for it one more year, shove those chips in. That's that's what's happening here. This is, what do you call it, from the Bulls? One last dance, and Trent McDuffie's coming in to be the DJ, and we'll see if we can get back to the top of the mountain.
And what I love, but your point off the top about that trade last year in the first round, which, by the way, we do think the Vikings had a chance. Like
And
the
should have
Vikings,
taken.
yeah. This is how you move. So you can afford to say F them picks when you're set up like this. Like the Rams are a very, very smart team. And they do things that are incredibly strategic at times to try to open the window and they are close. Like they're a good team now again. So yeah, I guess I admire the intestinal fortitude, the balls of this type of trade when you know that you have a chance to go for it. And by the way, you basically got a first round pick last year in a heist of a trade. So, and just to go back to the Jalen Ramsey trade, which I think was made at the deadline, which of course catapulted the Rams to a Super Bowl at that time with Jacksonville, was for a 2020 and 2020 first round pick and also a 2021 fourth round pick. So they actually did give up less as far as first round picks this time around than they did for Ramsey, who was there for about 3 or 4 years, and was a hell of a player.
Yeah, it's kind of wild, man. Like they, for almost a decade now, or like call it 7 years, this has been their organizational philosophy. And you have to be so confident in, I think, a couple things. Your ability to still find young players without first round picks in the draft and just be, you don't have to be a perfect drafting organization, but you got to be finding starters and value somewhere. But also the other variable that is just not really possible to replicate is when you have a head coach who is that great at adapting and elevating. Sean McVay doesn't need the ingredients that other head coaches do to produce wins. I mean, the 13 personnel thing this year is a great example. All right, well, we might not have the horses anymore now that Cooper Kupp is gone and not in his prime. And we might not have the horses to run just 11 personnel down teams' throats. So, I don't know, let's just go find 5 tight ends and rotate them and run heavier personnel packages and find ways schematically to beat teams. So the aggressiveness and then the creativity of the coaching staff combined, it's cool to watch the Rams cook like this.
And in addition, and speaking topically to the draft strategy of the Rams, about a month ago on, I think it was on Thor Talks Purple, we went through, I outlined the 3 best NFL draft classes, the teams got in 2022, 2023, and 2024. So by career value, what were the 3 best draft classes in the NFL each of those years? And so it would have been 9 at the end, right? 3 from each of them. And it was 4 or 5 of those. I think it was 5. The team did it by having multiple first round picks. There was only one class that was in one of the top 3, of those 3 years where the team did it without a first round pick. And that was the best draft class that we currently have from the 2023 draft. That was the Los Angeles Rams, who their first pick in that class was 36. That was Steve Avila. But in that class, they got Steve Avila, Byron Young, Kobe Turner. That was their first 3 picks. You got studs your first 3 picks. And then you go a couple rounds later after that. You get a guy, it was a little-known receiver from BYU. I don't know if you guys heard of this guy before, Puka Nacua. So the Rams, they have a different draft philosophy than everyone else. They were one of 2 or 3 Judd organizations that did not attend the NFL Combine this year. The Jaguars became a second one this year because the dude that runs them came directly from the Rams and has just brought his philosophy to Jacksonville. But the Rams, they totally blow off the combine. They don't care as much about in-shorts testing. They use in-game athleticism data, and they marry that with their opinions of the kids' film, which for people out there that's like, wait, isn't that just common sense? Common sense ain't so common. And the Rams, they happen to be moneyballing the NFL merely by doing that in the draft process.
I mean, okay, on the not showing up to the combine thing, is it possible that while the football world spent 2 or 3 weeks like, oh, the Rams they're innovating by not going to the combine. They don't believe in polluting their brains with pre-rehearsed answers by players. They don't want to get tricked by the combine. And we're giving them this like galaxy brain credit. But really they knew that they already had an agreement with the Chiefs to trade all their picks anyways for McDuffie. Like, why pay for the travel to go to Indianapolis when we can just chill back in Los Angeles?
But he's been on this for what, 3-4 years now that they've just skipped it, and now the Saints skip it too. I just think it's you got to have, like, this sounds cool, but at the end of the day, you got to have the right people as well. And that's the thing is, like, I'm sure there's teams like, we could recreate this. Let's take it from the Rams. And what those teams often miss is it's not going to work unless you've got the right people. And they're not just smart, but they are able to also process. I mean, Les Snead, the F them picks guy I think he was probably sauced up, and it was a moment of truth, right? Like, that's a moment of truth, which nobody in the NFL really wants to, like, he said the part out loud that you ordinarily will never hear.
Yeah. Actually, Judd, you just named the segment. This is going to be called Sauced Up. No, Sauced Up.
The sauced up segment.
I love that. But yeah, I mean, like, and that of course is the tagline. And then they made the T-shirts, the funny ones of the FM picks. And it's a Twitter meme to this day. But really, more accurately, it would be if it was like a tagline that was like accurate to the organization. I think it would be, we don't need premium draft picks to find good contributors in the draft, because we are not gauging the same things as you guys are. Our metrics are different in the way that we're going. That's why we're finding these different guys. Puka's a great example. Kyron Williams is a great example. I mean, you could go on. And there's ones that they do where they don't work, right? Where it's the guys with unorthodox dimensions or didn't run a fast enough 40 or yada, yada. That turns out they are beneath the threshold. But here's the thing. All of these guys are going to go in the late rounds. You can just keep throwing Mardi Gras beads at it. You're going to hit on some of them by just getting good football players in. Players transcend their athleticism numbers all the time in the NFL. It's not the favored outcome, but if you are also marrying it with, we have this army of scouts that is going through the game film that's bringing us back. These are the good guys or whatever, and then you marry it with the on-field athleticism. It's no real surprise that the Rams have been able to, again, sort of moneyball talent out of later rounds of the draft.
The other guy of the 14 players they drafted in that aforementioned 2023 draft with Puka, the pick that they selected 2 picks before Puka in the 5th round, they actually had 3 picks within like a 4-pick stretch in the 5th round. Davis Allen, who's a 3rd-year tight end now out of Clemson, and Davis Allen now, 3 years later, was a huge part of the reason why they were able to run heavier personnel packages along with their other tight ends here in this last season. Okay, football, the hurry up, the blitz, the dime package,
no huddle. We're going no huddle.
No huddle.
Can we call it Thor down territory?
Thor down territory. Oh,
that's
my
good,
God.
too.
I think we got it.
I love that.
Okay.
I think we got it.
Thor down territory.
Thor down territory.
Thor down
I'm adding
territory.
that to the.
Dude, I think that's it.
Unless we struggle. Because if we struggle, then, like, let's not do that.
Yeah, and don't have me throwing on 4th and 1, boys. Let's just hand the ball off, go up the middle.
Power.
Yeah, exactly.
Next topic for you guys here.
Love this.
Drew Dolman has announced his retirement from the Chicago Bears and the NFL. And it's shocking for a few reasons. He's only 27 years old. He's one of the best starting centers in the entire NFL. He helped with this last year with the Bears rejuvenate that offensive line and help put a jolt into the first year of Ben Johnson, an experienced high-level center for Caleb Williams. His dad, who played in the NFL and has been a coach, had major back issues stemming from his football career. And so Drew Dalman, who I think has also had some back issues in his career, maybe with the Falcons, but he's the next player. And this has been kind of a growing trend over the last 10 or 15 years where guys just decide, you know what, I've made $20 or $30 million. I'm good. And I don't want to put my body through this anymore. So huge loss for the Bears, who did bring in the center from the Commanders that just got released a couple days ago. So they're looking. But your guys' thoughts on Drew Dalman in early retirement from the Chicago Bears?
So
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, so this is the 2nd consecutive offseason when a prominent center from this division has retired because, of course, our own Frank Ragnow with the Lions a year ago. I think minicamp had just started, or OTAs. He retired. We're fully expecting, by the way, that Ryan Kelly, who was the Vikings center for a portion of 2025, is going to do the same. But yeah, don't sleep on this. Like when you are Ben Johnson, especially with Caleb, who is definitely improving and definitely is now turned a corner. But still, the center, can you imagine the difference that Dolman made there? I mean, I'm sure it was enormous. And the relationship between the center and the quarterback ideally is a huge deal. The center often makes line calls, things like that, so alleviates concerns from the quarterback. So I don't think we can sleep on this because Ben Johnson's system is pretty intricate, and I'm sure Drew Dolman played a huge role. They'll replace him. But if you guys recall, a year ago, this was the center name on the market. Like Drew Dalman, we talked about him for the Vikings. This was the name. So this was not hey, he's still got some football left. This was a guy, well, and age-wise, he still is, in his prime. So it's unfortunate for the Bears. It's unfortunate if Dalman is suffering through back problems like Phil talked about. But if you are in the North, I think you're pretty damn happy that Drew Dalman won't be facing your team next season.
From the player perspective, I'm surprised that this doesn't happen more. And to Drew Dolman, good for you. A guy who has had injury concerns, he saw it close up as a kid with his father, and then later in life, like if you keep playing through that, complications that can happen for that, he made his life-changing money. And sure, he could have kept playing, but at what cost? Obviously, is what was behind that. So he gets to walk away. He already has his life-changing money. As far as for the Bears, it's interesting that this is a solid free agent center class, and I think it's a really good center draft as well. And the Bears, you were mentioning, Judd, like all the resources they put in to fix the interior offensive line last year. It was their stated goal of last offseason was we must fix the interior. And boy, did they get aggressive. Now, they would not have been expecting 1 year later for the center of that collection to walk away. But I think with sort of the market factors that we're heading into this offseason with the center position, both with free agency, a class led by Tyler Linderbaum, and who knows how much Tyler Linderbaum's going to get at this point. He has a lot of interested suitors. There is going to be a bidding war for Linderbaum, but there's several starting centers, available outside of that. But also in this NFL draft, I've made the argument that this is a better center class than it's been given credit for because of all the position converts that we have that could potentially play center. Keelan Rutledge, Brian Parker, the second from Duke, Trey Zune from Texas A&M, could go on and on with that. So Chicago, they'll have certainly options out there to replace Dalman, but yeah, certainly a tough break for them.
You mentioned Frank Ragnow as last year's example. I'm wondering, will Drew Dalman try to come back in like week 10, go through a workout, and then the team gives him a physical and says, you have a grade 3 hamstring tear off the bone. What happened?
Would Frank have found that if he didn't go through the physical with Detroit?
Well, wouldn't you feel it? Like, how did
that's
it
what I'm
happen?
saying. Like, wouldn't you be like, hey, honey, I'm going to go to the doctor. I can't really walk well.
You're dragging your leg behind you, honey. What's going on there? Just got to work out with the Lions. I'll be back in 2 hours. Sure. Last topic for you guys. Last couple minutes here of the, what are we calling it? Thor down territory here.
Down territory.
Yeah, that's right. Blue 42. Max Crosby, a lot of rumblings about Max Crosby heading out via trade here in the next couple weeks, or maybe it drags into the summer. But pulling up the site that Judd is now a co-founder of, Kalshi again, 46% Bears for Max Crosby.
Yep.
30% stays with the Raiders. 17% Dallas Cowboys, which would be an interesting twist where they go from trading a younger high-end pass rusher in Micah Parsons and then turn around and trade picks, I guess, for Max Crosby. But, boy, if the Chicago Bears wind up, if this 46% holds, because it's the highest percentage, and he winds up in Chicago, I kind of love it. If you're the Bears, why not create kind of a win-now window here in the next 2 years? You're loaded on offense. You took big steps forward, and if you can get Max Crosby, but the division would then have, in terms of pass rushers, Max Crosby, Micah Parsons, and Aiden Hutchinson, and Dallas Turner. all in the same division. So, wow. What would your thoughts be on Max Crosby either to the Bears or the Cowboys?
Well, it sounds like he wants to go to the Bears. That's, his preference if something like this is going to happen. That's been reported a couple of times. So I took a look at my trade chart just to give people an idea with the reported ask price right now, what sort of the equivalent would be. Chicago, they have the 25th pick in the draft, and the the report has been that the asking price from the Raiders is a first-round pick this year, a 2027 first-round pick, and a player. No more specifics on, who the player would have to be. But just to give people an idea, the 25th pick in this draft and then a first-rounder next year, and my trade chart's worth 530 points. The third overall pick in the draft is worth 514. So basically the two first-round picks, that's sort of worth the third overall pick sort of juiced. And then what player would they be asking for back for Max Crosby? It's going to be a big price, but, Khalil Mack trade in the past, like we sort of have, measuring sticks for a trade like this. So the asking price definitely makes sense. Now, will a team like the Bears, one off season after, what was it, boys? I believe actually August 28th was the day that the Packers traded for Micah Parsons. The only reason I remember that is because it was my birthday. We were at the State Fair. And Phil, we were about to head to the Gopher game to watch Buffalo, the opener that day. But I got an alert on my phone about the Micah Parsons trade that day. But anyway, 1 year after that, now are the Bears going to steal a page from their rival's book and go and do the same thing for a stud edge rusher? This can be pretty fascinating to watch. But there's an arms race right now in that division. I was told numerous times at the Combine the Packers are going to be very aggressive. Everybody knows the Bears are going to remain aggressive. They have 2 years left on their two off seasons left on their window with the Caleb Williams rookie scale contract. This is the time. Now is the time to throw your resources in. So that's what I would expect is them to do it, whether they can get this trade or not. But they're going to be aggressive.
And the Raiders would be crazy not to. If
Agreed.
the Raiders and Crosby hadn't had this like weird falling out where Vegas shut him down, they still should trade him. Like they need to trade him. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
They are in maximize the player now. You're
No
not
pun intended, Judd.
No, actually, pun intended. That was very
okay.
good of me.
The puns are
I'm taking
always intended.
Yes,
on
throw
football
down
takes.
territory.
Yeah.
Maximize the player's value now. You are not in a winning position. You need a lot of help. You need draft picks. I actually think my assessment of the Raiders is this, because they have been and are a dumpster fire. I think if Mark Davis gets his nose out of the business, I think John Spytek is pretty good. They're GM. I think football-wise, they might be on the right path. Mark Davis, though, brings that bowl haircut in and screws things up continually. But I think if you allow Tom Brady and John Spytek and the actual football people to run the show, they would trade Crosby in a heartbeat, and they should trade him.
Yeah. Boys, we got to roll. Those are our football takes here on this Wednesday. If you enjoy this new podcast, if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, the like button. This is also the home for Thor's draft-related content the next several weeks and months. And then on Apple and Spotify, you can find football takes and give us a 5-star rating and a positive review as we get this thing off.
And Phil, just a really quick promo at the door. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow on Football Takes, I will have on PFF's Trevor Sikkema. We're going through each of us on both sides of the ball, 5 under-the-radar risers from the NFL Combine. So 5 non-first-round risers on both sides of the ball with Trevor Sikkema tomorrow on the channel.
Love it. Awesome, man. So check that out tomorrow. For Thor, for Judd, for Dex, I'm Phil, and these have been our Football Takes. See you guys.